The first item that I have on this list would be a Temp Gun. Now, this one was about $20, I believe, on Amazon. It might have gone up to 30, but it's cheap. But don't let the price fool you because there are a lot more expensive ones on the market. This one by a Tech City or whatever it's called is actually really accurate, and this is one that I was recommended to use by another reptile YouTuber that I saw on YouTube. I think it was Go Herping that suggested buying this, but yeah, I bought it and I've been using it since, and this is actually extremely useful. Celsius, Fahrenheit, you know, the gist. One thing that's also really nice about it, you can turn the red light on or off. I think I have it off right now. No, I had it on. There you go. So you can turn that on if you want, and then if you press this button, typically it works. There you go. And now the red light turns off, and you can still take the temperature without blinding your pet. You shouldn't be pointing anywhere near your pet anyways, but just in case he walks out like, ooh, what's that pretty light? And then end up blinding himself, you know, prevention. So this is useful for everything. Checking a hot spot if it's hot enough. Making sure, turned off. Making sure your, come on, turn back on. There you go. Making sure the heat lamp is working, so on and so forth. The battery is almost dead in this thing, that's why it's taking a second. But it is a really good tool to have around if you're keeping reptiles of any sort that require heating. The next item on this list is something that I feel like most people probably either have lying around or can find relatively easy, and that would just be a Deli Cup. Now, it doesn't need to have holes in it because the purpose that I use this for is mixing calcium or other vitamins up. This one has dirt in it because I've been using it as a poop container. So if you are picking up gecko poop and you just want to, like, you know, put it in there and not worry about it, that's what I typically do. Is I just put the poop in a cup, and then once it fills the cup up, I dump the cup. But yeah, there's plenty of uses you can have for these. You can also put isopods in here for transport. I wouldn't put a gecko in here unless it's like a morning gecko or something tiny, but you can use it for animal transport as well. These are actually just super, super convenient for everything. So I cannot have enough of these Deli Cups lying around because they make life easier. The next item on this list is something that seems almost common sense, but for me, when I was first getting into reptiles, it really wasn't. This is just a reptile pooper scooper. Now, the reason why I recommend this so much is because if you're keeping something like a leopard gecko, they like to poop in places that are somewhat confusing.
I will shit in places that will leave you confused.
So, this is something that I like because it can get into those small little nooks. If you have a like bioactive enclosure or a setup that has like a permanent background where you can't move, and your gecko decides to poop into that little like nook, it's kind of a pain in the butt to get the poop out of that nook once it's in there. So that's why I recommend something like this, because I can take it and kind of, there you go. I can take it and I can just kind of like wedge it in and then do that motion. And it's been a lifesaver ever since, because I cannot tell you how much poop I was missing with the old method of like taking like a cat litter scooper. Like, I know this is common sense, but just honestly, if you're getting a leopard gecko, get this little like gecko poop scooper thing. You can find these at PetSmart, Petco, or I think Amazon probably has something like this. Common sense, yes, but don't skip on it because it's so useful. Next up on the list is something that if you are a reptile keeper, no matter what species you are keeping, I highly recommend getting, and that is ReptiSafe. Now, this is just water conditioner. Sometimes the water, like tap water, can be harmful to your reptile, and certain reptiles it can be fatal. So it is always a good idea to use something like this. I've heard that aquarium water conditioner, like for fish tanks, is the same thing. But I just use ReptiSafe because it's just what I've been using, and, you know. This stuff, for this little bottle, it was about $8 on Amazon. It's not cheap, but it does last forever. All you really need is a few drops in a water bottle, and you're good to go. I use ReptiSafe anytime I give my geckos water, or I do a spray down in the bioactive tank that I have, or if I'm spraying down, well, I don't really spray down, but if I'm pouring water into the snake enclosure, so on, I always use ReptiSafe. The next item on the list is literally just a spray bottle. You can get these at the dollar store. I got one of these larger ones from Amazon. It came in like a pack of 4, and because I have a few different reptiles, it was convenient. But if you only have like, you know, a gecko or something, then you can just get one of these from the dollar store. Yeah, it has my leopard gecko name on it because this is the water bottle that I use for his enclosure, even though I don't really have to use it often because he's a leopard gecko. But, for his humid hide, I guess. But, yeah, these are super useful. If you have anything like a crested gecko, for example, or anything that like needs humidity, then this is something that you should have just by default. But even if you don't have anything like that, like a crested gecko that needs humidity, it's still good to have this. Just like whenever you need to top off a water dish, you can just open up the top and pour it in without having to go grab a cup every time. So, yep, water bottles, useful. So the last item here are tongs. If you're a snake keeper, chances are you probably already have these. But for gecko keepers, these are also super useful because they are great for spot cleaning. Like if you just want to pick up one turd, these are useful for that, like especially if you're trying to get it into like a little crevice, as I mentioned before. That scooper works for crevices, but sometimes it's like really hard to get in there, and that's when these come in handy. Another thing that these are used for, and is actually my primary purpose for these, happens to be feeding insects, because I hate feeding insects. Now, don't get me wrong, I will breed them, I will like interact with them, but as far as like touching them, I hate that aspect of it. So I use tongs just because it gives my gecko the food that he needs without me physically having to touch a mealworm because gross. You're nasty. And yeah, so this pair that I have here, these metal ones, I had to get off Amazon. Sometimes you may have trouble finding these in chain stores like Petco and PetSmart. I don't know if it's just my area, but I could not find these in store at all. Now, the reptile shop that I go to get my mice and stuff, they had them, but I didn't know that until I already ordered these off Amazon. So I'll leave a link to these on Amazon below, and the other items that you can find on Amazon as well. And I appreciate you guys watching. That's pretty much it. If you found this helpful, please give me a like. I appreciate it. If you want more reptile videos and more tips and stuff like this, please make sure to subscribe. And if you have any ideas or suggestions or other items you think are super useful, leave that in the comments below, because maybe other people can see that and find that useful as well. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Brendan. Until next time, goodbye.